I'm everyone and no one. Everywhere, nowhere. Call me Darkman.
Welcome to Now Playing Podcast's Darkman Retrospective Series.
Now crime has a new enemy, and justice has a brand new face.
Hosted by Justin,
You handsome devil.
Arnie,
He's a freak, ladies and gentlemen. He's a freak.
and Stuart.
Be careful, he bites.
But be warned, this episode will contain detailed plot spoilers and strong language.
I think we've all learned a valuable safety tip here.
We hope you enjoy the show.
No more Mr. Nice Guy.
Today we're discussing Darkman, starring Academy Award nominee Liam Neeson, 3-time Academy Award winner Frances McDormand, 2-time Logie winner Colin Friels.
What?
It's a Logie. It's the official TV award for Australian excellence in television.
Everybody knows that.
Sure, yeah. How prestigious. Is it made out of Vegemite?
2-time Emmy Award winner Larry Drake. Primetime, too. Not a daytime Emmy. 2-time Primetime Award.
I know what he won for, yes.
Directed by Sam Raimi. My name isn't Buddy. It's Arnie. Arnie G. Carvalho.
And Stuart.
I'm everyone and no one. Everywhere and nowhere. Call me Justin.
Who is Darkman? That was the ad campaign. I very distinctly remember. You know, summer 1989 was the year that I truly fell in love with movies. There were such great movies coming out that summer. But summer 1990 was the year that I went every weekend. I made a point. I was going to see a movie, no matter what it was. And all summer long, I saw that trailer, Who is Darkman?
Oh, I had the same experience, Stuart. It was really 89 and 90, even though we were living far apart. I was in Florida, you were here, but it was 89 and 90 that I started going to the movies every single week. 89 was such a big year, and 90, I just would go all the time. I'd moved back to Springfield and left my Florida friends behind and was going to the mall and seeing 1 or 2 movies a week. And I had no idea who Sam Raimi was. I had no idea who Darkman was, but it kind of looked like another comic book movie. I thought, hey, we had Batman, we had Dick Tracy, now we have Darkman. And so I actually went to theaters to see this in its, I think, second week of running. I didn't go opening weekend, but I went to our theater at the mall. I walked there because I was still too young to drive and saw this in theaters. I have a very vivid memory of my reaction.
So both of you guys were aware of this. I mean, I might have heard the name and I might have seen a picture of what he looked like, and I probably got it confused in my head with the Invisible Man or something, right?
Easy to do.
I mean, because I definitely had no interest in seeing this. I mean, I can distinctly remember being excited about Batman the year before, and then there was all this hype for Dick Tracy, which I got real sick of before it even came out, and I was just like, that's for older people. And if this was the third thing in that string of comic book movies, I was like, who is Darkman? I don't care. I'm going outside. I'm going to go take the car out for a spin.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I definitely feel like weird, I know, for today's audiences, but like there was a time when you could go all summer long and not see a superhero in a movie theater. They just didn't make any of them. Batman was the kickoff, and yeah, Dick Tracy was kind of like the readjustment. Like, I guess not all comic strip characters are the same thing, because they poured the same amount of money into that, and it did not get the same amount of love. And Darkman was this little thing thrown out at the end of summer. But like I said, they had teased it very well. I think the Danny Elfman score made it feel very Batman-esque. It also had a lot of Phantom of the Opera vibes, and that was still running on Broadway very strong. I think that all of that sort of contributed to the fact that people thought it was something they should know. Even though this is not a character that comes from comic books. I imagine he had one created after this came out. But no, we're talking about an original production that just kind of looks like something you would know. And at a time when people are starved for superhero entertainment, it fit the bill. It was a tidy little profit, 14 million investment that became about, 50 million take home in the US.
Yeah, not enough to get a theatrical sequel, not a huge hit. We'll talk about what happened with the sequels. And despite how Batman-esque this looks with the Elfman score and everything, this actually was it started shooting in early 89. So this is merely a case of parallel thinking where 80s, early 90s influences merged, but Raimi couldn't have seen Batman to have Burton provide any kind of influence on this.
Well, no, but of course everyone in Hollywood would have known they were pouring $40 million in that old comic book character, and that was going to be a trend. And this feels like the ripoff, right? Like this is the thing that we do to try to chase what's presumed to be and obviously was, a big cultural moment.
That's not how this came about. Sam Raimi, we talked about him with the Evil Dead movies. Evil Dead 1, an indie film that he hustled to get the money for, got some notoriety for, kind of opened some doors for him. He then took that and immediately squandered every bit of goodwill and money by making a film called Crime Wave.
A forgotten collab with the Coen brothers.
Yes, and the Coen brothers actually were around during his making of Evil Dead. And at the time of the inception of Darkman, Sam Raimi was living in an apartment with Joel and Ethan Coen and Frances McDormand, who was with Joel Coen at the time. So they were very, very close. Sam Raimi helped his money people give the money to the Coens for Blood Simple. I mean, they are really tight. But Raimi had to go back to the well. The only thing he could make after Crime Wave was Evil Dead 2. And Evil Dead 2 really put him on the map and opened more doors for him. And he knew what he wanted to do. I want to make a movie of The Shadow.
Yeah, I get that. People laugh because obviously when they did make the movie of The Shadow, it was another 90s bad superhero movie. We had records. We would put it on. I listened to Shadow Adventures. But he had a cool mystique, and I could see very much the influence of that here.
Well, Raimi wanted to make The Shadow and was talking to Universal, and they said no. And in 86 and 87, Raimi was trying to figure out what he would be doing and working with Universal, and he'd written a script about a man who could change faces called Darkman. He just was thinking about, a guy who had a lot of masks and then extrapolating from that. But he's like, I don't think this is good enough for me to direct, but I'll sell the screenplay and let somebody else do it. But when Universal wouldn't give him The Shadow, he went back and started working on Darkman again, got some uncredited script rewrites from the Coens, and ended up deciding, all right, I'm going to try to pitch Darkman to Universal. And this went on for years. Universal kept giving notes on the scripts, wouldn't finance it. They turned in the 12th draft after years of going back and forth. And I read this in Bruce Campbell's biography. Sam finally got sick of them and said, listen, I've spent 3 years of my life on Darkman. I'm not trying to make an art picture. I'm selling out to you. This would be my first studio film. If you don't call me by 10 o'clock, I'm shredding the script. And goes home. 10 o'clock comes and goes. Raimi pours himself a bottle of champagne and says, at least I'm done with Darkman. It's out of my life. At 11 o'clock, Universal calls and says, all right, we'll give you 10 million. Go make the movie.
And when was this again? You're talking about this is after Evil Dead 2, so we're talking about 88?
Yeah, 88.
The gears would have been rolling on Batman and Tim Burton at that point. So again, I bet you that was the thing that made Universal go, well, we better try this.
I mean, it's got man in the name. Why not?
But when I watch this, I see superhero. Sam Raimi definitely was thinking more Universal monsters. He was thinking the Phantom of the Opera. He was thinking Jekyll and Hyde. He was thinking Frankenstein and Dracula with all of this. Because this was a Universal picture, he has postulated that this goes in the gallery of Universal's cinema monsters.
And yet I just took a tour of their Vegas attraction, and there was nary a mention of Darkman amid all of their Universal monsters. I did have an awareness about Sam Raimi. I had rented Evil Dead 2 I had loved it. And by this point, I was reading movie magazines. There was one called Premiere, sadly out of print, but was meant to sort of tell the general public about the Hollywood inner workings. They did a whole feature in the magazine on how they storyboarded the big lab explosion sequence with the bird dipping and all of that. And that was kind of the first time I ever became aware of what storyboards were and how you kind of created shots before you filmed anything. It was really cool. And then I was also a fan of Film Threat, and they definitely talked up Raimi as a director on the rise. It was part of my excitement that the guy who did Evil Dead 2 was doing this Batman ripoff when I went to see it. I was actually on vacation in Florida with my dad, and I convinced him after a day at Disney World to go check this out. And I just remember his response was, I liked Batman better.
I mean, hey, I'll say, not having seen this in the past and coming into it fresh, it was quite the gift to see that this was a Raimi film and an earlier Raimi film. So I was like, oh, okay, this will be kind of fun to go back to his earlier work and see kind of not where he got started, but where he was going after he planted his flag.
And I knew of Evil Dead from Fangoria because I was reading every issue of Fangoria since 87, but mostly sticking to the more franchise articles. But when Evil Dead 2 came out, I read about it, but I wasn't paying attention enough to the names. I didn't pay attention to Tobe Hooper and Sam Raimi. I just read the guy who did Poltergeist or the guy who did Evil Dead. And so I think maybe Fangoria, I do remember the cover of that issue now that you mention it. That may have helped hype me up, but I wouldn't see Evil Dead or anything until Army of Darkness was on video and I rented them and did the whole trilogy at once.
Well, it should also be pointed out that Raimi's not the only future A-lister involved in this project. Liam Neeson, 3 years before Schindler's List, is starring in this. I would have seen him in stuff. I saw Crawl. I saw Excalibur. I don't think I would have noticed him before this movie.
I had seen the Deadpool and I had seen Satisfaction, and I don't remember him making an impression on me back then. When I saw this, I had no idea who Liam Neeson was. Of course, Liam Neeson was not Sam Raimi's first choice. This was one of his many capitulations to the studio. Who do you think Sam Raimi wanted as the lead?
The one that's playing Darkman at the end of the movie.
Bruce Campbell, that is correct. Raimi thought he and Campbell were like Scorsese and De Niro. We were just going to do every film together. And Universal is like, Bruce Campbell is not a big enough name for us to put on this movie. But then I'm looking and I'm like, Liam Neeson is? At this point in his career, Liam Neeson is?
He had done dramatic work. I think he was considered good. He had worked with some really professional people, Meryl Streep kind of stuff, and he was just waiting for his big break. We can forget that sometimes people come from the stage, they have a reputation that they haven't yet transposed onto screen.
Yeah, Neeson, I think, was just always kind of a star in waiting because, like, I saw not too long ago that he and Judi Dench dated for a long time, like in the early 80s. And it's like, well, how did they even meet? Like, she was a star at that point, and it's like, oh, she just found this younger guy to bring along. But Liam Neeson, I feel like, is a guy who was always just perched and ready for stardom. And I don't know that this is the vehicle to get him there. But yeah, this would be the first time that I would recognize him for seeing him.
For me, he was the Darkman guy from this point on up until Schindler's List, so only a couple of years. It's just hard to believe that he'd be in Darkman and then a few years later be in this prestige black and white drama. You don't see those kinds of swings. He became like a really serious actor after Schindler's List, doing stuff I wouldn't watch, like Rob Roy and Michael Collins and Nell. Then he became just this, I'm going to phone everything in and be lazy action guy, but...
Yeah, we'll talk about it. You talk about, yes, Liam Neeson is having a stellar A-list career. That window does close, and he goes back to making Darkman-like movies. Frances McDormand is also here, and she would have been the star of Blood Simple. I probably would have even seen that movie by this point, but I didn't recognize her as anyone. And of course, she's 6 years away from winning her statue for Fargo.
Well, by this point, I was a big fan of Raising Arizona, so I might have recognized her from her small role there, but that's about it.
I wouldn't have seen Blood Simple till film class in college. She'd already had a Oscar nomination at this point for Mississippi Burning.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I have seen that movie, but much later, not at the time.
No, me too. I saw it in the 90s. And she got the job because she was, again, one of Sam Raimi's roommates. They were literally living in the same flat together because she was with Joel Coen. And Raimi had gotten some flack. To hear Frances McDormand tell it these days, Raimi got flack for his treatment of women in his first films. And so he wanted to have a strong woman who would be a professional and ballsy and in that kind of a role in this movie. And he picked Frances McDormand not just because she lived in the same place he did, but he thought she would be able to bring something to a role and provide a three-dimensional female character to help offset some of the criticism he was getting. That's Frances McDormand telling this. And what they both say is they fought horribly during this film because Frances McDormand was like, I thought I was playing a smart lawyer who was going to be capable. I do not play damsel in distress. What do you have me doing? And she was so pissed off at what her role was that they would just argue and yell at each other on set for the longest time. They still lived together in the same place for a couple more years, so I think they got over it, but it was a tumultuous working relationship between them, which you wouldn't expect in that scenario.
But come on, Arnie, the thing that got you to the theater, I know what it is. The star of this film for you, and maybe truly still the star of this film, Larry Drake. Arnie was a huge LA Law fan. He watched it religiously, and Larry Drake was the intellectually disabled, I don't know, what, mailman of the law firm?
Yeah, a mail clerk. Funny enough, though, Stuart, I'd not seen an episode of LA Law by the time I saw this.
What?
LA Law had been on for a couple of years. I was a little too young for it. I saw it as a nighttime soap opera. I wasn't in for Dallas or St. Elsewhere or Hill Street Blues or LA Law. If there weren't cops shooting guns like Hunter or Remington Steele, I wasn't into it. It was literally this movie that got me into LA Law. I'm like, I want to see more Larry Drake. And LA Law just hit syndication on Lifetime, the network for women, in that same fall. And so LA Law was hitting reruns, so I was able to catch up on all the old episodes right after seeing Darkman.
No, okay, well, he's definitely a standout, and he's doing something very different on that show than he's going to do here. We should probably talk about it. Arnie, why don't you give him the plot for Darkman, and we'll find out how close it is to Batman.
Peyton Westlake is a scientist played by Liam Neeson. He's working on a synthetic skin for burn victims, but the false flesh falls apart after 99 minutes. His girlfriend Julie, played by Frances McDormand, is an attorney who just uncovered a memo tying her boss, real estate titan Louis Strack, played by Colin Friels, to a bribery scheme. Strack admits to the bribery, but warns her a competitor of his, named Robert Durant, would kill her to get the dirt on Strack. Durant, played by Larry Drake, isn't a competitor. He's Strack's hired thug, and he and his goons storm Westlake's lab looking for that incriminating memo. They find it, then blow the lab up with Westlake inside. Westlake survives, barely. Burned and mangled, he's taken to a hospital where doctors cut the pain centers in his spine so he can't feel the pain of his burns. The side effect is bursts of rage and strength he can't always control. He escapes the hospital and rebuilds a makeshift lab in an abandoned factory. Convinced Julie could never accept his ruined face, and seeing her being wooed by Strack, he keeps his distance while pushing his synthetic skin research forward. At the same time, he starts hunting Durant's men, wiping them out one by one and using their stolen cash to fund his work. Eventually, he perfects temporary masks of his old face. He meets Julie again in short bursts, always watching the clock before the skin liquefies. On the side, he crafts masks of Durant and his crew, running scams and setups that turn the gang against itself. Strack finally steps out of the shadows once Durant's operations start collapsing. He sends Durant after Westlake with a helicopter and a grenade launcher. Westlake survives the assault and causes Durant's chopper to crash, presumably to Durant's death. We'll talk about that more.
You mean in the sequel, The Return of Durant?
Westlake then impersonates Durant to get to Strack, but Strack is ahead of him and grabs Julie as bait. The showdown moves to the top of Strack's unfinished skyscraper. Westlake saves Julie and drops Strack to his death. Julie tells him they can still try to make it work, but Westlake knows he's changed too much inside as well as out. He walks away wearing a new face, this time played by Bruce Campbell, and disappears into the crowd as credits roll.
Now, I mentioned I saw this in theaters. I have only, until this week, seen it in theaters, just once. This is not one that I came back to. It was no evergreen, even though I like Sam Raimi. I'll always turn back to Evil Dead 2. Darkman was a one and done, but I always remembered this opening. If you ask me, what was Darkman about? It's Larry Drake taking a cigar chopper and taking a gangster's fingers.
This is a hell of an opening. I mean, you start just blasting the Elfman score, which I feel like Elfman of this time was really one note. I think you could take his discs for Batman and especially Nightbreed and Darkman and like put them in the wrong cases and people might not notice. But I liked the note he was playing. And so you get this score and then, yeah, just this opening of this mobster who's like, tell him no, tell him no. Tell him, fuck you. Just really establishing himself as a powerful guy. And then, yeah, Benny the law clerk from LA Law shows up with some guys, one of whom is Ted Raimi. They don't look that imposing.
No, but they're the quiet ones. Always watch out for the quiet ones.
Yeah, one of his goons has a false leg, and the other guy kind of sympathizes with him for a second there, and I think that was the point where I started to figure out what type of movie we were getting ourselves into here. I was like, oh, right, this is a Sam Raimi movie, okay, because it felt pretty dramatic up to that point. And then he rips his leg off and starts firing at people with it.
That seems like a very Johnny Dangerously joke to me, like that level of humor. But yeah, it's just a big opening. It's an interesting opening for me for this film because we're not being introduced to Darkman. We're not even being introduced to the big bad, but we are getting introduced to the main thug and the real estate plot. This whole thing is all about real estate development. It is 1989 when they're making this. And the whole reason Eddie Black is getting confronted by Durant and his guys is because he won't sell his property to them, and so they're gonna kill him to get the land.
This is the very definition of scene stealing, right? I mean, Durant should be like Bob and Batman, right? A goon that you blink and you miss him, but because you have the stunt casting, I mean, again, I assumed Larry Drake was special needs. I didn't know that he was just playing a role. So for him to totally switch gears here and be an icy cold killer, it's so much fun. And again, he really seems to enjoy this moment when, yeah, there's some shootouts and everyone has their little bit. I love the fact that the guy that had the machine gun leg is just there at the end hopping up and down, like didn't really plan for what to do afterwards. But yeah, he's got that cigar chopper and boy, yeah, he's got 10 reasons to take it out on this guy.
What's funny is Sam Raimi and Robert Tappert, when casting this, had never seen LA Law, had no idea who Larry Drake was, and the people at Universal were like, him? Because they also thought he was just this guy from LA Law. But yeah, he was hired, not ironically, at least not by Raimi and Tappert for this.
Yeah, they saw something in him that nobody else in the country did.
But I mean, he is a big guy. I mean, he does have a kind of a frame that can intimidate you. But yeah, I mean, with what you guys are saying about what he's known for, I can see that being kind of a funny thing in 89.
What's funny is going back and watching The Karate Kid. He's one of the drunks who makes fun of Mr. Miyagi on the beach. Then Mr. Miyagi smashes Larry Drake's beer bottles with a karate chop. And so he said in a press kit at the time that he's played like big-hearted people or big thugs. He's a large man, so he's going to always have that big in it. But yeah, the only thing that I've, to this day, seen him do that was before Darkman is he's credited as Yahoo #1 at Beach in Karate Kid.
One of the other things I noticed before going into this movie is that it's rated R. And with it being a Raimi movie, I assumed, this because of gore and blood and all that stuff, right? But we have a big shootout here, but it's not reveling in any type of blood shots or anything like that. I mean, we get our main guy, we get Drake, whose thing we find out is taking the fingers of his enemies and collecting them. They don't show that happen. You know it happens. So I'm starting to wonder, where's the rated R going to come in here? We already have a ton of violence going on, but it's not gory violence. Why is this rated R?
Universal had to have wanted this PG-13. That had to be some kind of sticking point that Raimi fought for. Yeah, spatter that is not here. If you are waiting for Evil Dead kind of eyeball firing across the room, going into someone's mouth kind of gross outs, it never really comes.
It is shocking to me that this is rated R, and I'm just finding out now because you said it, Justin, because our mall theater, you'd have thought I was trying to buy cigarettes underage if I tried to see a rated R movie, and yet I went alone to see this when I was 15, so I got in somehow, and yeah, I don't see that. I do not see where this is, and in fact, Raimi describes this as his sellout picture. He toned everything down at the behest of Universal, who was very much watching this unknown director. This, again, his first studio film. They were reviewing the dailies on everything and providing feedback along the way. Actually threw more money at him halfway through because they were liking what they were seeing. But I thought this was PG-13 the whole way through. I don't remember them saying fuck a lot. I don't see any gore here that is that frightening. I mean, the most gory thing is going to be Darkman's face itself.
That might have pushed it over the top, but yeah, it was interesting to me that this was a rated R movie where it feels very, very PG-13 by today's standards.
Although I did, in my just memory quote of Eddie Black did say fuck you in that very first scene, so I guess just a couple of F-bombs thrown around is all you need to get a soft R, but this is a very soft R film. They cut the scene that would have made this a hard R. There is a scene of the bad guy, Strack, rolling naked in gold Cougarans. And that guy is gifted down under in more ways than just the Loogie Awards. It was full frontal, I couldn't believe it in the deleted scenes.
In this movie?
In this movie. And apparently Universal saw the dailies of just a man alone, completely naked, frontal and rear roll, rolling in gold coins, and went to Sam Raimi and are like, what movie are you making? This scene is not in it.
Yeah, penis didn't really make it into any kind of 80s, 90s movie that I could recall. Very rare. But your point is, I think, very astute. All about Larry Drake, this real estate deal. You're talking about the big bad being an entrepreneur rolling in money. It's almost an afterthought that we have a scientist trying to develop synthetic skin. He's the boyfriend of the lawyer who's actually involved in the plot of the movie. And all of this is just sort of a device that will allow him to have his superhero camouflage gimmicks.
It's a great grabber of an opening. I mean, Raimi does good action. We've seen his Spider-Man films and things. And so to hook us with that gets our attention. And then, yes, we get the credits in between that prologue and this. And yes, we just get to a scientist. I'll admit, now, you only saw this in theater, Stuart. I've seen Darkman, I can't count how many times. I put it in our book as an underrated movie I recommend. I've seen this movie so often, and when I watched it for this review, I just took it in, and then I realized I don't really understand the machinations of things. Like, does Peyton Westlake work from home?
Yes.
Because he has a scientific lab
above a Starbucks.
Uh-huh. I had to go back and look at establishing shots to be sure that his lab is in fact where he also is canoodling with Frances McDormand later on. I wasn't sure, though, how this memo I talked about in the plot summary got to his lab from their bedroom. I was very curious about that and wanted to know that connective tissue.
He's one of those home scientists, with the Fly, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Flubber. My basement is where I'm going to invent the thing that's going to change the world. And no wonder it's not working, right? He's got one of those sharper pin image things, trying to create things by you take a snapshot of somebody, feed it into a printer, and it goes through a whole bunch of holograms and graphic interpretations before it spits out some kind of gummy version of what you took a picture of.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta give it to him, though. Like, this is 1989, and some of this technology obviously feels goofy to us now, all these years later, but back then, this was imaginative. People thinking about the idea of getting a 3D scan and building a 3D model and 3D printing out skin grafts and stuff like that. That would have probably got me excited in 1989.
Really? Because I actually feel like I was missing another better movie in these scenes. Like, I feel like they're doing a quickie version of what Cronenberg did so well with Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum in The Fly. They built that whole idea about I'm trying to build a transporter and it ends up turning him into this monster, and her love, and she sort of teaches him how to solve the thing. They try to do this here in real quick. She's trying to help him figure out the skin, but I don't feel like Frances McDormand's lawyer plot fuses at all with this synthetic skin stuff.
That was also part of my realization watching it this time isn't it ironic, as Alanis would say, that a man seeking a skin that would help burn victims himself becomes a burn victim? The amount of dominoes that had to line up just right to create this superhero who has perfect skin masks and super strength and all of the emotional turmoil. It is just a very specific set of skills that could create this Darkman.
So let me ask, why are we going to end up at a city in the future and obsessed with a skyline? And why can't it all be about getting the secret to the skin?
Yeah, because, Arnie, you're right. They do set up a lot of dominoes, but I'll let you know right up front here, they drop a lot of this by the end of the movie, and who he becomes eventually, it starts to bother me, that he suddenly doesn't care about the things that he cared so much about, including Frances McDormand, but we'll get into that. I guess what I'm saying is they set all of this up, so we need something to grab onto, and slowly, one by one, it's something we're not supposed to care about as a viewer anymore. I guess we're just supposed to care that he's on a revenge mission at some point.
It just becomes something on his utility belt. That's the disappointment of, oh, you're just got some skin that allows you to look like other people. It's a Mission Impossible or Face-Off joke. And it could have been a really interesting idea. Again, if you think about the way The Fly looked at what Goldblum was trying to do, it's just a much smarter take on a B-movie.
And you mentioned, why couldn't it be about people trying to get the formula of the synthetic skin? That was the way they went with it in the TV, is Durant, reprised by Larry Drake, wanted the skin. That was the abbreviated origin story they went with when they tried to make this in television. But we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But other writers than Raimi saw ways to simplify this. As we've talked about with so many films, when you go through 12 drafts of something, things that seemed really important in draft 3 that are still hanging around in draft 10 because they've been there for so long and the writers are too close to the material to realize it's extraneous, I think is part of what happened here. It's just a weird mishmash where it's not like RoboCop versus OCP, where OCP made RoboCop and Frankenstein turned against his maker. Here, I mean, unintentionally, Strack injured Westlake, thus turning him into Darkman. I mean, similar to how Batman threw Jack off the gantry and turned him into Joker. But it doesn't make sense for a skin scientist to be on a vendetta against a real estate guy and have a drug kingpin as the go-between.
If the conceit is that they want to give him something that would allow him to make masks of other people, then he could have another career. He could just be a special effects artist. He doesn't need to be specifically a guy who's trying to perfect synthetic skin and then need that technology and then blow it up later on for whatever reason.
It's damn cool, though.
Yeah, it's a cool idea, and the problem is they establish here he's got a lackey that he's talking to, and he's like, we can only make it work for 99 minutes. That'll obviously be a fun thing that they play with, is that he can only impersonate for a short amount of time, which creates all of these scenarios where he's got to do things quickly. It's a nice ticking clock.
It is. I like that. I love this hologram technology. I love this 3D printing. I love the wireframe of skin that looks like they're just using the same software that the weird science kids use to make those boobs. I just love all of this stuff.
We're getting some more steps along the way of how that happened, right? That's why I think I would have liked it so much in 1989. It's like, oh, here's some of the more scientific steps on how we get a woman to come out of the bathroom. But just one more point on this whole thing is that the fact that they have this ticking time clock of 99 minutes of stability for the skin, that's great. Then why do they have the whole part where they figure it out and make it stable, but it's only in the dark? And then that never comes up again because that's when the bad guys show up and blow everything up. That should have been something that he was working towards recreating, and it just never gets resolved. It should have been why he's called Darkman. He gets the skin and only works if he's in the dark, or it goes away.
When I first saw this in theaters, that's what I thought. I'm like, oh, he can only go out at night because he has these masks that melt in light, and that's why he'll be called Darkman. And then it never came up, and I'm just like, all right, I don't know why he's Darkman, because he's in daylight a lot of the time.
But there is something to the fact that, again, Raimi saw this as a universal monster. He is going to be a Darkman because, well, we don't have much time with nice guy scientists. And the few romantic moments that he has with Frances McDormand, that Liam Neeson is a schlubby, nice scientist guy who wants to get married, and this is like his lifelong girlfriend. They have photos of them together since college, at least. So, again, we're to see this as a tragedy. He started as a good guy trying to do something noble and help people with a medical need, and by the end of it, he sees it as a mask that covers something ugly inside.
Frances McDormand was very upset in post-production because her character did get a lot cut out. When Raimi turned this film in, it was a 2-hour movie. Universal chopped out over a half an hour from it.
It's like the skin. If it's over 99 minutes, we're done with it.
And actually what happened was, without Universal's knowledge or Sam Raimi's knowledge, Robert Tappert and an editor snuck in and swapped the prints and in like 48 hours, re-edited the film and didn't tell Universal this was a different edit. And Universal didn't find out until they'd already mastered the sound and it was going to prints. And Universal was really pissed and like tightening security because they did this. But the edit we're seeing is like this rogue edit. But this half an hour that was cut is on the Shout Factory disc. It's just raw footage. And most of it needed to be cut, I'm going to be honest. It's all before Westlake becomes Darkman. And it's a lot of Julie Hastings, the lawyer, working with Strack and Strack's father. So Strack Jr. is Strack Jr. because his father is in charge of everything. And then Strack hires Durant to kill his father so that he can become head of the Empire. And Hastings is getting along well with Strack Sr. and Strack Jr. starts having romantic interest in Hastings before anything ever happens to Westlake. And there's like a 10-minute dinner scene with the two Stracks and this lawyer. And I'm like, this is adding a lot of character. I see why Frances McDormand would want this character, because she really was a tough lawyer and really showing a lot of strength on screen that we don't get in the final performance. But come on, you had to know this was going to go when you're shooting it, if this is 10 minutes in the first act.
Yeah, we're here for Darkman. We're here for what he's going to become. And this plot about whether they build the city or not is irrelevant.
But hilarious. When we get to that reveal, I think that's when I finally realized what flavor of movie we're watching, but we'll get there when we get there.
The thing I really wish that I could get into, though, is this long-term relationship. It is driven home even further in this cut scenes how long Neeson and McDormand had been together. He wants her to marry him. Now, it's not the most romantic proposal. He's just asking her as she's walking out the door. He doesn't even have a ring. But she's like, I don't know. They've been together for like 20 years. And she's like, I gotta think about this whole marriage thing. I wish that even in the lost footage, I wish that it was shown that she was fighting between career and love. Like she felt like she couldn't be a good lawyer if she was married or something. There had to be a reason for her to be hesitant to marry Westlake after all this time. And I just don't get what it is.
I think they just want the irony, right? Like, I'll give you an answer when I get back. She gets in a taxi. When she pulls back in that taxi, boom, it will be taken from her. She's ready to marry him. It's just an irony. I'll go ahead and say it. And I like both these actors. Miscast. These are not the actors. They're not playing well off of each other. You telling me that there's a lot more of Frances McDormand scenes explains why she would be cast in this, and not just as a favor to the Coens, because she isn't the kind of arm candy that this part really is set up to be.
I agree that their chemistry isn't the best, but I kind of do like the scene of them where she's in bed having the phone call about the memo and he's bringing her coffee. And then after she hangs up the phone, he like play tackles her in bed. First of all, they've been together for over a decade. Are you still tickle tackling your partner after 10 years? If so, kudos to you. Keep that love alive. But, you know, it just seems like a new relationship kind of thing if she's lying to his grandmother when she calls on the phone, yes, landlines, and she picks it up. But even if they can't play romantic the best, I just want more character development for why she would say no to this, because it should end up being the regret of her life, because as far as she knows, he's going to die that night.
Yeah, she's going to challenge the entrepreneur, who is obviously, it would have been more obvious at the time, Trump is a junior. You know, Trump Sr. was a much bigger figure in New York. Trump Jr. was the wannabe. And so that this character, what do they call him? Strack? Yeah, I keep wanting to call him Trump this whole movie. Forgive me if I do. But yes, obviously we're supposed to get vibes from him. He's gross yuppie from the get-go. And there does feel like there is kind of a love triangle. I'm not sure why she's hanging out with him, because he's an entrepreneur and she's a lawyer and she's caught him paying off zoning commissions. So that should, for her, be a field day. She should be running off to sue his ass. Does she work for him? I can't figure it out.
It is very clear in the cut scenes that her firm was hired by his company to represent them. So she doesn't work at his company, but she is retained as his attorney. And so why she is so excited to have this gotcha information about her own client, and then is on the phone with somebody we'll never see saying, well, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and talk to him about it first, seems weird.
Clearly, she should have been burning this memo, right? She should have been the one to destroy it. Oh, yeah, pour more coffee on it. Liam Neeson accidentally leaves a coffee mug ring on it. She should be dousing the thing.
Right. This whole situation is weird. First of all, one piece of paper, like nobody's got copies. There's no paper trail whatsoever.
It was the 80s. It could have been done on a typewriter.
Right. It is the 80s for sure. But I don't know how you guys picked up she was a lawyer. I thought she was an investigative reporter for the longest time.
I know. It's because of the Margot Kidder vibes. But yes, I agree. He makes a lawyer joke at the end. No one's going to miss a lawyer when I throw her off the building. That's the only time I caught it.
There's a brief time. Again, there's more of it in the extended stuff, but I did catch the first time she drops the name of her law firm. And just because it sounds legal, it's, you know, I work with this guy and that guy. I'm like, okay, she's a lawyer. And then they confirm it at the end. But yes, it's her being a lawyer is so irrelevant, because what kind of law is she practicing? Even in the extended scenes, she's doing contract negotiation, but not what lawyers actually do, which is protect. She was hired by Strack Sr. to negotiate a lower price for him on some real estate. I mean, you can have lawyers do that for you. Lawyers will do most anything for you for $350 an hour. But usually you do your own negotiating and bring in the lawyers to finalize the paperwork.
Yeah. Let's just cut to the chase. No one goes to Evil Dead because it's got a great plot. They want to see Sam Raimi have fun with gore and camera works and tricks and big comedic performances. Let's get to Darkman. And I don't think it's the wrong impulse that by, 15 minutes in, we're having Durant crashing the lab, looking for that memo, and killing the assistant, throwing Liam Neeson into... Well, they get him in there eventually, but before they throw him into bubbling acid, he grabs some electrodes and fries off his hands as well. He goes through a lot.
I loved that claymation effect. Even as a kid, I knew that was claymation and didn't look real, but looked cool, of the flesh just singeing as it grabbed the electrodes. And
I have to agree with Sam Raimi. I think Bruce Campbell would have more fun with this. Maybe that wasn't the direction they were going for. Maybe Liam Neeson's playing it more straight because that's what they told him. We're making a dark, brooding movie, Batman. But yeah, it feels like you want to laugh at this stuff.
This scene is where it definitely establishes the flavor of this movie. And if it was intentional, I do not know, but it's what its legacy is going to be, which is cheesy special effects, but earnestly done. They're working with what they have. I mean, by the end of the scene, Liam Neeson is being thrown up into the air screaming like a cartoon character. This whole scene raises questions for me. The bird that he has there sitting there going back and forth, isn't that a perpetual motion machine? I don't know that it's going to gain more momentum as it keeps going. Why would that be the device that hit the lighter to incendiate?
I have had one. I could tell you that it's the liquid in the bottom. The head is kind of felt, and the more wet it gets, the heavier the head gets. So it will, after time, go. But yes, you are correct that in the end, it is not made to be headbanging. The whole idea is that eventually the water drifts back down and it keeps, nothing is a perpetual motion machine. If you can invent that, you're a gazillionaire.
it's better than fake skin, if you can build that.
Yes.
But another person who was probably mad at the edit is this assistant in the lab. His name was Yakatito. There were many scenes with Yakatito talking to Westlake about the project and encouraging him to propose to Julie and all of that. And here in this fight, they cut out maybe a minute of Yakatito busting out the martial arts moves and beating the crap out of Ted Raimi.
Yeah, because why just have one Asian stereotype when you can have multiple? He's a scientist and a karate expert.
And in the extra scenes, he also talks with a patois and misses a lot of words.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
Anyway, again, the get to it is the right impulse. And zap, zap. It is a fun sequence. I do remember being excited to see it after reading the Premiere Magazine article. The close-up of the bird coming at us and hitting that lighter. The iris of Neeson dilating as the flames go across the lab. Again, Raimi knows how to enliven a moment.
I love the camera work here that's being done, where the camera's swooping around. All the crazy stuff that he was doing on Evil Dead, it's slightly more restrained here, but he's working with Bill Pope, who's the director of photography, and got the job because Sam Raimi said, if I tell you to put the camera here, put the light there, and then do this with the camera, what are you going to do? And Pope was like, I'll put it where you tell me to and do what you tell me to. He's like, you're hired. And Pope would go on to work with Raimi on a lot of films, work with Sonnenfeld on Men in Black, work with Edgar Wright on Scott Pilgrim.
You're bearing the lead. He invented bullet time. He did The Matrix. Now, he was a very talented music video director or cameraman throughout the 80s, so he had a lot of skill. He knew what it was like to film elaborately on a low budget. And even though this movie is underfunded, I think, Justin, as you've hinted, there's an aesthetic here that's sweet in its earnestness when it can't quite pull it off. But he can convince me with his camera. The thing is still alive.
Yeah, there's a lot of push zooms and Dutch angles here that today feel old and rote, but you got to keep in mind, this is before MTV started aping this type of style with the reality shows and stuff. So this would have been somewhat fresh at the time to get these crazy angles and the camera zooming and whipping around like this.
Oh, not somewhat fresh. I'd never seen a film like this before because I hadn't seen Evil Dead 2. If I'd seen Evil Dead 2, then I would have been expecting this. But yeah, I'd never seen a film with a camera that moved like this camera moves, with lighting like this film has on its characters' faces and things, underlighting that one goon from below and really making him look like when Wayne from Wayne's World would do the I'm the leprechaun kind of thing with the flashlight. That's how this guy looks in the lab. It was startling to me as a 15-year-old to see a film this kinetic.
And it should be underlined too, because I had to remember there were think pieces about this. There were a lot of people that were worried that MTV was ruining the movies, that it was rotting kids' brain. Our attention spans were being reduced because it was quicker cuts. And because they were doing these kind of spastic moves, there were people that were concerned that this was the fall of cinema. But yes, for me, and I think for a lot of young people, it was exciting to finally see a movie, junky though it may look, that actually had some energy.
Now they say this about TikTok. So yes, people who decry the death of cinema have been decrying the death of cinema since a black and white television first appeared in somebody's house. So I think we're still beating that dead horse.
Tripod still exists, so I don't think we're quite there yet. This visual cinematography is doing a lot of the heavy work here, right? Because as we said, the budget is not necessarily there. We're getting a lot of green screen effects, seeing a lot of green halos around people, especially in the scene where Julie is just getting to the apartment as it's blowing up, and we get this weird fade from her kind of staring at the building burning to now she's standing at the cemetery. And I have questions about this, too. What did they bury? He's got a whole gravesite and a headstone. What was buried?
That was a joke. There's a gravedigger talking to the hearse driver, and he's like, it's only got an ear, so it didn't take me long.
Oh.
That scene was extended because there's a moment where the gravedigger continues talking to the limo driver. He's like, you don't pay for the digging. What you're paying for with your grave is real estate. He's really driving home, the real estate plot here. But yes, they buried his ear. And I absolutely love how fast this movie is going. All this stuff that's cut, thank God it's cut. Get us to Darkman and get us through this origin story fast. We've covered hundreds of superhero movies that belabor this point to death. Here, 20 minutes, and we're in the hospital with Jenny Agutter from American Werewolf, along with John Landis, her director of American Werewolf, as doctors taking care of, it looks like they've got like an entire wing of burn victims in gyroscopes.
Yes, of course. Next up, they'll be throwing them off on bungee cords. Yeah, just what an unusual practice to try. They mentioned that they're doing something unusual by cutting off the nerves, ostensibly so they won't feel pain. But yeah, just an unhealthy hospital environment that he's found himself. And of course, absurd to think that a flaming man was found in the water, not probably too far from a building that exploded, and nobody put one and one together.
No, he's just a homeless guy. We get a lot of them.
Yeah, he has no ID. We can do whatever we want to him. And I think it's even fun for them. It seems to be like with homeless people, they're doing something unethical and getting away with it. So that he busts out of these restraints and gets out of there is probably for the best for all.
Yeah, because the doctor, Jenny Agutter, says, I give him a 9 on the buzzard scale. So she does not put a lot of interest in her patient. And in front of these other doctors, she's like, look, I can just poke him with pins. He doesn't feel a thing.
Right. So this is my question. You guys have seen this several times. Is that his power set? Is that he's impervious to pain? So he doesn't feel the burns. He can take bullets here and there as long as they're not fatal.
You'll see in a scene or two, he'll catch his hand on fire with a Bunsen burner and not even notice.
Right.
And I have questions on if this means he has no feeling at all, or does it just not feel pain? But also, she runs down his power set. It's like he's impervious to pain. But this is going to cause his brain to feed on other things, his emotions. He's going to have uncontrollable surges of adrenaline, which will give him his superior strength and endurance. And it's also going to cause emotional feelings of isolation and uncontrollable rages. So he's basically the Hulk. He's like a small Hulk.
Which, again, was one of the few successful superhero attempts that had happened, on television. But again, it was not a genre that had a whole lot of legacy. The movies you're talking about, where we've seen all those origin stories, they come after this. This is 1990.
I know. I wish they learned from this to not belabor the origin stories so much and to just get us to the point.
I don't know. I could use more in a serious movie. If this were a good movie, I think you would want to spend more time on emotional beats. But this is a B movie, and it's totally fine that he goes to his burned out lab and finds charred TV monitors and things and just wheels it off to some neighboring, we all have that warehouse down the street that nobody's using, and we can turn it into our labs.
It's kind of a lateral move, right? Like he goes from his burned out husk of an apartment to a burned out old factory floor.
Yeah, he should have done that to begin with. Why bother with the Starbucks thing?
So here I question his motivations, right? So now he's alive, he's dead to the world, and he gathers up his equipment. So to me, it seems like what he's trying to accomplish here is he's trying to fix himself, because we haven't seen exactly what he looks like yet, but he has. And I thought his whole motivation was, well, I'm the guy who's doing skin, let's fix me.
Right. No, I think that's it. And I do like this idea. So he is. If he had a good photo of himself that he could feed into that computer, he would put on Liam Neeson's face and go back to his love and live that former life, and that would be it. But because the photo that he retrieved has the chars and the scratches on it, he does some work in there where it's it's going to take me 3 weeks for it to figure out how to reconstruct my face. I think it's the idle time, right? It's that time that he has to tinker and to think about what people have done to him that gives him the idea that in the meantime, I can make the skin of goons and go after the 6 guys that attacked me in the lab.
Which is also very strange that, he puts together burned pictures of him, and it says it's going to take 571 hours to print his face, but I can print a goon in an hour.
No, it's that amount of time to reconstruct the photograph.
Okay, I thought it was 500 hours. I've owned a 3D printer, and literally it does take 500 hours to print some tchotchkes sometimes. So I really just thought it was 500 hours of the printer going on the face.
I thought that too, but later on they do show that the rendering of his face is complete after that time.
Yes. Again, if he could be himself in this moment, or if he was willing to be somebody else, he could go and live a different life. But because he's going to spend time, 571 hours, we're talking about 3 weeks to kill in between. Well, again, that puts some bad ideas in his head, and I think we're to understand the more that he spends time being other people and doing violent things, the further he gets away from being nice guy Liam Neeson, who wants to marry Julie.
In this final edit, though, it seems almost like happenstance, like he's stalking Julie to this formal event Strack is having where he's dancing with her, and Darkman is watching through a window and just happens to see Durant is there with Ted Raimi and getting Ted Raimi a martini. And that is what causes his rage. We get this montage of breaking reality and things. In the extended scenes, Ted Raimi actually had a very different death. Darkman toys with Ted Raimi for most of the movie. Sam Raimi, I think, had his brother in a lot of this movie in an early cut, and then Universal gave him money to redo Raimi's death. But Ted Raimi was shooting insulin while attacking Westlake, and Darkman finds the insulin vial with his name, goes to the guy's house, torments him, tortures him, stalks him, and this goes on for half the movie, I think. So here, it's just happenstance. He was going after Julie, happens to run across the guys who were attacking him and talking endlessly about a memo. So Westlake knows there's a memo involved, and so he's going to take Ted Raimi in the sewer and torture and interrogate him in one of the absolute best kills in all of movies.
What? All right, hold that thought. But I do want to just underline Occam's razor, right? The shortest answer is the best. Let's just get to it. Yeah, that makes more sense. I'm a nice guy, but then I see my woman that I'm waiting to return to in my original form dancing with another guy. She's gone. I think he's to realize, and I guess those earlier scenes that you said were cut would have reinforced the fact that he was already worried about her being wooed by Trump. And so now, yes, when he has that moment of rage, he's not a person that would normally kill. It's only because of this moment, being enraged by what his woman has done, and then seeing the people that hurt him, that pushes him into this greatest kill ever? Why would this be the greatest kill ever?
It is so fun, even though it's quite obviously a dummy of Ted Raimi being put up among actual moving cars, and they're just moving it with less articulation than a Muppet. But Ted Raimi screams as the camera is POV car tires, and his body's like bouncing back and forth. And it's such a badass scene because Raimi is such a loser. He's like, I told you everything. And I love Darkman. I know you did, Rick, but let's pretend you didn't. I mean, that's great. I love this moment. This is like one of my favorite moments in action movie history is Darkman doing that to Ted Raimi.
Okay, it was fun. I'll give you that. I had a good time watching it. It's a good death, and we now know what Act 2 is going to do, right? Oh, okay. Well, there was 5 other goons that we got to get through. Let's rack them up, knock them down.
Yeah, it was creative and funny. I'll give it that for sure. And it also, like you said, sets him on the path of like, okay, this is what I'm capable of. It still feels like he himself doesn't want to be the trigger guy. Like if he can almost like Rube Goldberg himself into situations where he's not the one actually killing the person, he's happier.
Yeah, the Yo Jimbo thing. Let's pit them against each other and their greed will take them out. I didn't do it. Yeah, this one's more fun. I kind of wish all the kills were more like this. There's this guy named Paulie, the bald one, who does some kind of pickup every week at a deli. Doesn't really make it sense because it's the same gang, like with a suitcase each week. I'm not sure exactly what his job is, but the point is, if I chloroform the real guy, put on a face that looks like him, I could take that money, and they'll think that Paulie betrayed them and killed him.
I like what he's doing here. It raises real world questions, like where did he get airline tickets? Like, so he spent money on this gag, but they also, this is 1989. He had to go to the airport or to a travel agent and buy these tickets in person.
Not only that, but the face-off problem, right? Like this guy is 2 feet shorter than him and overweight. Why is he able to wear the same clothes? I get you can wear the same face. You didn't do anything to the body. I guess he gave himself a left hand.
They actually had a cut scene of him putting on padded body fat to look more like the body type of this guy. And I felt like that's one 5-second shot they could have kept in there is him bulking up to look more like this guy.
One detail I do appreciate is whenever he's wearing somebody else's face, they pancake makeup on that character, so you can tell it's slightly fake.
I love every scene where the character adjusts the skin on them. It's the same thing that would have been done in Hellraiser by this point. They probably would have seen that where Serpico was adjusting his flesh on his face. But whenever they like grab their neck and he's like adjusting the fit of the mask and they add that squeegee sound effect of the mask moving, I love it.
And of course, yeah, you throw Paulie out the window and he splats on a car and then you pan over and see Peyton in the guy's face, kind of giggling, chuckling to himself. Yeah, these are good visual moments, good visual storytelling. It's a lot of fun. Again, is this high art? Raimi's correct in saying he's making a sellout B picture, but he's definitely bringing his A game to the B picture.
Agreed. It's just a lot of fun. And the actors they got to play these goons are all really distinct. They all have a look to them. Paulie kind of looks like the boss guy from Reservoir Dogs, you know, with his shaved head and his bulk. And then there's Smiley in here, who is played by one of the guys from the Wayne's World movies. He was one of Wayne's roadie friends in those 2 films, and he just looks like a hair metal guy in here because he's the long hair and the big smile. and then you've got the ethnic one, and then you've got Ted Raimi as the nerdy one, who I think Durant is like got a crush on or a relationship with or something, because
Yeah.
he offers to get Ted Raimi a martini, which is just weird for the boss to offer the underling, can I get you a drink? But then later on, one of the guys is like, well, we knew he liked Ricky. I've always thought there was something there. And then Drake said in an interview, yeah, there was that line about liking Ricky, so he and I just really played up like we were lovers.
Well, I mean, after he shot Peyton's assistant, like as they're walking out, he's like, good job. You did it just like I like it. Clean through the brain. It's like, yeah, there is some weird relationship between those two that's somewhat on screen, but I think there's a lot more going on off screen.
Perhaps. But the one we're supposed to be focused on is Peyton, and he comes back from this pretty upset. I mean, it's worth pointing out, he doesn't get too many of these scenes, but this is the scene for him to show regret. I shouldn't have done that. I'm a scientist and breaking equipment. I think at one point putting on a 10-man funnel and dancing around like he's in the Wizard of Oz. He's almost losing it as he's losing his good guy ethics.
I thought this was just one of his adrenalized rages, and the way he's like, look at the dancing freak. And I love Liam Neeson's delivery of this stuff. I think his staccato performance and his body usage is really great here. And I thought he was not upset that he hurt the bad guys. He was upset because he still doesn't have a face and isn't human.
No, he literally says, oh God, what have I done? He looked into the microscope and again, Sam Raimi details, there's like a light reflection that looks like a crucifix in his iris. They're definitely playing up this idea that, yeah, he regrets this. He's trying to be better. He's trying to be his objective scientist self. And when you know it, ding, the Liam Neeson face is now ready. He can go to Frances McDormand and try to have that life now.
Exactly, because at this point, he still holds on to hope that he can then get back his regular life, his normal life. So he's caught between becoming this monster and trying to get back what he lost.
That said, the dude's got no game. You don't go to your own gravesite and like, surprise! That's not a good plan. He could have called, right?
Well, he did go to her right after his accident, and she runs from him thinking he's just a crazy homeless person in the rain.
Well, I wonder why, with a jaw of bone protruding from bandages over his face, bleeding. Yes, of course, anyone would have been horrified. She's horrified here in this moment as he's running up on her, but he eventually settles her down and tells her the story that basically, what? I was just a John Doe in a hospital, but now I'm free, and I need some more time to do my PT or something, but we can be together soon. And basically, this is him saying, I've got to perfect that skin cell to last in the daylight longer than 99 minutes.
And thank you, Justin, for pointing out the pancake makeup, because there was something about Liam Neeson as rubber face Westlake in this movie that always looked off to me. Like his face looked rubbery and things. And when I see Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon or in The Haunting or whatever, I don't think that. I certainly don't think it during Schindler's List. So why do I always feel he's so rubber-faced here? I think you're right. I think they're putting a sheen of makeup over him to make him look more rubbery because he is wearing a mask at this point.
They're doing that, and they're also doing a little bit of Vaseline on the lens whenever he's with Julie in these later times, because it's always kind of that dreamy, hazy type of blurry almost environment that they're in.
But his impact is having an effect on Durant. Durant is stating that he's got cash flow problems now. That suitcase that got stolen, they really needed it. And so now he's got to lean on a gangster in Chinatown named Hung Fat. And because Peyton is outside that mansion listening in, I'm not exactly sure why he's doing that. He can set him up for one of my favorite sight gags in the movie. He puts on a Durant mask and then goes to a convenience store and turns to the closed caption cameras and says, I am Robert G. Durant. So they can't miss it. In case we just have to go by like visuals, because those cameras can be cruddy. Let me give you my full name.
And I love that Westlake does all of this observation. A lot of it is so he can do photography, so that he gets pictures of the people so he can make the mask. But in this case, he was also making it so he could copy the voice. He was recording Durant. That will be just fine. That will be just fine until he can sound like it. Because when he was Paulie, he didn't talk. Now he realizes I have to do more than just put on the cologne and put on the mask. I have to talk like him to some degree. I have to be able to fake it. And that Durant always calls himself Robert G. Durant, and that he does that, steps right up to the camera. It's cheesy. Sam Raimi does cheese so well that it's a lot of fun. And then Durant getting arrested. Why would I rob a convenience store? I mean, it is this crazy question as to why he would ever be thought of as doing that, but he is clearly doing it.
Yes, it's beneath him, but we have you on camera, exactly. We at least have to post bail. And while that's going on, this will give Peyton, still in Durant disguise, an opportunity to go down and get more money out of the Chinatown goon.
And the clock is ticking. He's watching his stopwatch. And so he does something very Durant. You will give me the money by the time I finish smoking the cigar, and then cuts it down to just a stub. And the guy playing Hung Fat, he's been talking also in this patois the whole time. Robert, I am so honored with your presence. You know, all of this the whole time. And then when Durant burns his own hand, he's like, okay, Bob, you win.
Yeah, no, it's a fun scene. I really like this. And of course, the punchline's great too. Durant, he's caught up in all of that Chinatown traffic. I'm not exactly sure why.
There's a parade going by, apparently.
Okay, yes, they got the dragons. It's Chinatown, right? Yes, of course. Every week they've got people in the dragons going through the streets. But anyway, the point is we got to get the real guy and the fake guy to meet at the same point in a revolving glass door. What a fun image. And again, this had to be an inspiration for that Face-Off movie, right? Whoever those screenwriters were, they must have seen this movie. They must have seen the gold in this moment.
Yeah, this was a trailer moment. I knew it was coming in there, and split screen being what it was when you didn't have digital compositing, it still looked very good. The use of the body doubles when they're fighting and you can only see the back of things. This is so much better than what they were doing with Data and Lore on Star Trek around the same time, and you could see the seam. Here, this was well done, well filmed, well composited. I know, Justin, you're saying some of these effects are hokey, but I think this holds up pretty well. And Larry Drake's dual performance, who would have thought he had it in him to play two different versions here of like, whose little boy are you? Happy Robert versus freaked out Westlake. I'm loving this, and the shoot him, no shoot him. It's, every doppelganger movie ever has that scene in it, but it's fun here.
And again, the 99 minutes ding, the alarm goes off, and the face starts to bubble, and it's no longer confusing which one Rudy should shoot. It just ends too soon. If this were a more funded affair, I think that we would have extended moments. The action comes like everything else. Quick, to the point, and then it's over.
They could have played with this trope for a little bit more with this, because, this is the big one, right? Like, he messed around earlier with Paulie, but now he's doing the big bad. We do get the cool scene in the revolving door, but yeah, you're right. They should have run through the streets and bumped into each other and got split up, and one of the lackeys isn't sure who's who, and he gets away again. But we get enough of it here that I think it holds up. Like, I had to remind myself that this is an older movie, and there's no way that any of this is 3D face replacement. This is all being done with split screen trickery.
Old school. Yeah, very much so. And obviously, if they remade this, for example, we would have much more action, right? They would have a lot more going on. This is a short movie. It's a B movie. And we got to get back to the love story. Again, this was all to get more money. I don't know what he was hoping to do with that, but maybe he thinks the money will help him solve the skin problem.
I think that's the whole point, is he's funding his research, and maybe he wants to move out of this abandoned factory that's his Darkman lair and get someplace with more reliable power or something, replace the burned computers. But no, he's going to go to... My favorite death is Ted Raimi's. My favorite scene of this film is the carnival with the two of them, though, after this, where they're out on a regular date and his clock is ticking. And just before he goes, though, he's going to win her a pink elephant.
Yeah, this whole scene is just a bad acid trip on film, man. Like the visuals are doing push zooms on freaks that are laughing and moving out, and the whole thing's kind of blurry. The sky seems fake. It's all overexposed. This whole scene is burning up to a boiling point. And I think it's great because it starts off all lovey-dovey and then things get more and more hectic. You got the carnival music in the background getting louder and louder, and it comes to a head over a pink elephant that he thought he won at one of these cheap booths.
If you had played this in a more traditional way, it would have been way too much to have like the carnival freak being dragged out at the time that he's trying to tell Julie his secret, and that's why he pulls back. But because Raimi is Raimi and doing, as you say, these visual tricks, it just makes it all the more fun. We laugh at cliche, whereas some people might play into it. What might seem like overbearing melodrama is part of the fun.
It's absolute genius when they first do the world falling away lightning effects again, and then Liam Neeson reaches out, bends these guys' fingers back, and the camera goes to the face of the carny, and he's screaming in pain, and then whips to Liam Neeson, who's screaming in rage, who whips to Frances McDormand, who's screaming in fear. I love this. It is perfection.
I mean, it's Sam Raimi. You might be overselling it. It's silliness, but it's great fun.
But of course, once again, Peyton's time is up and he's got to get out of there because the last person he wants to see his true face is Jules.
Although he's leaving a smoke trail. Like, she's able to follow him all the way back.
There's a little bit of a weird cut. Like, we see him running away from this carnival, and next thing you know, they're like in a downtown coming out of an alley. It's like, where was this carnival?
I don't think we're supposed to think this is L.A., but obviously it was shot in L.A. if you know L.A.
In the novelization, they call out that it is L.A. I read the book.
Anyway, yes, she now knows, and in theory, he should be able to step out there. Like, she walks in, sees the Liam Neeson mask lying on the computer, knows he made fake skin. He mentioned earlier to her, what if I was horribly disfigured? She can figure it out. She's a lawyer. But he's too afraid, right? He doesn't believe that she will love him looking the way that he does.
That's our big hint that this isn't a love story, right? When he asks her that question, what if I was horribly disfigured? She has a moment where she's just like, yeah, that might be a deal breaker for me. She never says, oh no, I would love you no matter what. She's just like, yeah.
She was never that on board to begin with. I mean, she was like, let me think about marrying you.
She was totally on board. What she said getting in the cab is, I like having my own place. She's an independent woman. She'd never said that she didn't love him. I think she would accept him mutated, or would at least try. You know, I think that she wanted to have that conversation. He's the one that pulls back. She goes and tells Strack it's over. It wasn't much to begin with, but my boyfriend is back, and this is who I want to be with. So that tips him off. And this is where, if you didn't know already, and I think most people would, he's in cahoots with Durant and is going to send the goons after her.
And when Durant comes out from the back, it has one line I've never understood, which is the whole, I've got good news and bad news. And Durant's being very formal for a change. He's like, well, decorum says give me the bad news first. And the bad news is Julie is turning against them and has to be taken care of. The good news is your wife died. And the way Larry Drake plays it is just utter confusion, and I'm with him. I'm like, does he have a wife? If so, does he want her dead? Is he supposed to be upset that she's dead? I'm very confused by this joke.
I mean, I think it's bolstering your gay theory that you posted earlier. Like, he's being funny about that. But he also will reveal, Drake, not Durant, that he goes through wives a lot, that he's killed all of his previous lovers. And that means bad news for Frances McDormand. He's going to go for her as well.
This is one of the craziest villain reveals in all of cinematic history. Like, so he starts just spouting off everything that's true and that he's in charge of all this. But then he thinks he's really doing something, and the movie thinks it's doing something, because he opens up these curtains from his office window to reveal they've already started their real estate thing. It's like, yes, that's outside. Everybody who drives by, that's not a reveal. People have been seeing that for 7 months, buddy. Like, what is going on here?
But first, they're going to go for Westlake in the big action scene of the movie. All the money shots came here, where Sam Raimi's like, wait, I have the money to play with helicopters now?
That was something. I was not sure this movie had it in it, but I was very impressed with the budget they had to be flying helicopters through downtown LA in a very, very invigorating action sequence.
Yeah, I mean, there are scenes. I mean, again, when the chopper blows up, and I mean, again, there's a lot of blue screen, but there's also real stuff here, real stunts.
It's the one time I feel Sam Raimi gives in to his broadest impulses is when you've got Darkman hanging off of a helicopter and they go lower and he runs on top of a truck going the other way like a cartoon character. But I don't mind it. It's just, this movie is fun and not super serious, and so that kind of a gag goes right along with it.
This is also where we get Raimi's signature Easter egg, right? He always has to get his Oldsmobile in there, and he has it running down the street here during this chase. And I read a little bit of rumors, and some people say that it was the Coen brothers driving, but it's not confirmed, so I won't say one way or the other. But either way, the Olds makes its triumphant return.
I had no idea about this.
Oh yeah, Bruce Campbell hates that car because it's been in more Raimi movies than he has.
Haven't they both been in a lot? Hasn't Campbell been in all of them?
Not all of them. There's a couple where he only did like voice, and somehow Raimi found a way to sneak that car into The Quick and the Dead.
Everything. It's supposedly in everything he's done, even if it's just pieces and parts of it at some point. It's in Spider-Man. It's Uncle Ben's car.
Well, this is where we get rid of all the goons, too. It should be said Smiley, the Wayne's World one, thinks he's clever. He sees a doppelganger of himself bum-rushing the show and knows to unmask it. It's Liam Neeson underneath, so I can shoot it. But, of course, that's a mask, too. And Rudy. Again, this is the thing we talk about. Like, it's more fun when he makes the goons kill each other than when he's the one pulling the trigger. And, of course, he makes Smiley relive the moment he went through. Bobbing Bird makes a return, but only as a hologram. The guy thinks he can stop the lighter from being switched on, but it's actually being projected from somewhere else.
That was too obvious a reveal because they were having good verisimilitude where the hologram doesn't look real. I did like the way we knew ahead of time that that wasn't Westlake because you could see the duct tape in Westlake's lips there. So you knew it was a Westlake mask with somebody duct taped underneath of it. So we were in on the joke before the unmasking. Raimi is really good when he's on his game, and he's on his game.
And I think you are seeing, although you're not really seeing Neeson in this, so this is all being done by, I want to call him Darkman by this point, but he's the bandaged character. He seems to be really enjoying it. There seems to have been that turn where you're feeling like you're watching someone that enjoys kills.
Yeah, and also, like, a guy who's done a lot of this before. And, like, keep in mind, he's dangling from a helicopter on a cable, and he's jumping rooftop to rooftop. We haven't seen him trained to do any of this type of stuff. He has decided that he's going to go after these guys, and apparently he's getting lucky in some of his skill set here.
Yeah, that super strength. I mean, you just have to write it off to the adrenaline thing that the doctor talked about. It's silly. Again, this movie is not going to work if you're trying to treat it with the self-seriousness that we would expect now from any superhero movie. I mean, I think that this is of a particular era. I don't think that if you put this movie out today that audiences would understand it.
Yeah, you'd either have to do a spoof or be serious.
Yeah, I think that people would go with this. I think it would find its audience even more today that can kind of have this unserious action comedy going. I'm thinking of like Boy Kills World and Crank and just some of these action films that go for the excessive humor and work really well. I think Darkman's their granddaddy.
The difference is that they're not going for the humor. They're letting the humor happen because they're presenting this as an earnest attempt. And I think that's the difference. To me, that puts it in a category of like a Tim and Eric type of thing almost. Those guys, they know what they're doing when they're subverting humor. And Tim Heidecker did a show after Tim and Eric called Decker. And it was kind of an action show. And it very much has a lot of this DNA in it.
Yeah, well, we're wrapping it up. Believe it or not, Durant is going to get the big explosion. And you're right, he's not dead. Seems like he's dead. But there's a sequel with him returning. I've not seen it. This is the only Darkman I've ever seen, so I wouldn't know how he got out of this with Neeson dragging that chopper into the bridge.
Yeah, he hooks the hook onto a semi-truck. I feel like that's the exact same ending as the first Mission Impossible movie where they hook the helicopter onto the train and it ends up crashing. But here's why I'm going to allow the return of Durant, is because in this movie, we see Durant with a grenade launcher in a helicopter, smash it to a wall, and the very next scene, we see Larry Drake cut up and bandaged, but walking out. And when I saw this in theaters, I went, oh, well, it's a comic book movie. He survived. And I just rolled with it, not realizing that was Darkman as Durant in that scene. And so since this movie plays with the idea that he somehow survived that chopper crash, then I can go with another movie following up on that.
I'm going to tentatively give it to it, but I'm going to need somewhat of an answer as to how he survived that.
Yeah, I'll let them wow me next week. But the point is, it's a comic book movie and people come back from the dead all the time. And no, you absolutely know when you see Larry Drake that this is Liam Neeson in disguise. Even Strake knows that as he's rolling in here and taking them up to toss Frances McDormand off the top of the construction site.
I did like how he made him reveal himself as talking about Durant's kids. And despite all the surveillance he'd done, Westlake doesn't know Durant doesn't have kids. And he says, they do look up to me. No kid would look up to him.
This whole scene is kind of unhinged, right? Strack is dancing from beam to beam and almost falling off. It's almost as if he's drunk, but he's getting off on this, right? I guess what we're learning about him is he's a guy with ambition, but also he's on the edge and not afraid to die.
Well, he talks about how he used to hang out with the Native Americans who built skyscrapers when he was a kid. And there's actually some truth in that. My godmother's father was a Native American who worked building high-rises in Chicago and had no harnesses and just walked on these steel beams. That's how they worked. That was their job. And so when he talks here about he uses the term Indians who used to do that, I feel like he's just, Darkman feels no pain, Strack has no fear.
The problem is that Strack is paled by comparison. By losing Durant, you've lost the villain. There just hasn't been enough of Strack being dangerous. He's not even really that Trumpian in the performance. It feels too little too late. Why are we messing with this guy when the villain died in the last scene?
Yeah, I'm getting that. And I think Raimi gets that too, because they don't drag this out too terribly long. I mean, we get a lot of exposition, a lot of yapping back and forth. We get a little bit of a fight with the bolt gun. Darkman gets his hand bolted to a beam.
I love the rivet gun attack, where it just goes crazy, and Strack is Al Pacino in Scarface with his laughing and firing.
I mean, they do what they can. The movie is wrapping up. It even ends with the ridiculous, you can't kill me, you're the good guy. Well, how many invitations have we seen our anti-heroes take of that? Of course, Liam Neeson is going to drop him. But I think we're supposed to take that to some degree as serious. Serious enough that he's not going to end up with the girl. He believes he is a monster now, has accepted that he's a killer, and thus cannot return to Julie and his normal sunny life.
I think that ship had sailed for Westlake once he shoved Ted Raimi's head out of the manhole cover. But you know what? That was a reshoot, though. In the original ending, Ted Raimi died much later, and Westlake actually didn't kill anyone. I'm just now piecing this together. Westlake made everyone kill each other. Only in the reshoot did Westlake kill Ted Raimi, which changes this moment and undercuts this moment a lot, because we saw him stick Ted Raimi out of a manhole and kill him. If we'd only seen him torture and torment Ted Raimi, then this would be a big character moment that it isn't sold as in the final cut.
Yeah, but who wants drama here? Again, this is goofy. This is B-movie. I'm not sure that you could have gotten this to be a big emotional moment. We aren't here for that. I'm not here for it. I'll just put it that way.
I mean, it is an emotional moment. It's just not a happy ending, right? Like, it's him deciding and letting Julia know that this life that they had is no longer going to continue. It's kind of a bummer for a final note of a movie.
She's kind of a bummer. I'm glad. I'm like, oh, good. You mean the sequel is he doesn't have to mess with her in any of this. he can go off and look like somebody else and we can have a totally different adventure, I'm down.
My question then becomes, why and what is Darkman then? If his motivation isn't to get his old life back and be with the one he loves, and he's just going to be this vigilante, and apparently we need him to have a messed up face for that to be a thing, it almost felt like they wanted to keep the door open for a sequel more than they wanted to wrap this movie up.
Raimi was hedging his bets in case Liam Neeson didn't want to come back. Let's put Bruce Campbell in as his final mask, so when we pick up the next movie, Bruce Campbell is his new mask.
No, I think that's where they were going, and that would make more sense, but it isn't where they went. They made sequels that are smaller, and I don't even know who's playing Darkman in them. We'll find out when we get to them in the weeks ahead.
Yes, Bruce Campbell literally had better things to do. We'll talk about it. This last shot of Bruce Campbell might have meant things to people who knew Evil Dead 2 back and forth, which had to be still very cultish and niche back then, even in the day of VHS.
I recognized him.
I had seen that movie he did with Walter Koenig, Moontrap, probably 1 year before I saw this. And yeah, I didn't recognize him. This is probably the first time I paid attention to who Bruce Campbell was, because I watched Moontrap for one reason and one reason only, and that was Chekhov. I didn't pay attention to the other guy. So here, this was my introduction to Bruce Campbell as he fades into the crowd. And I always am impressed with this shot, where you have a huge crowd, but yet you're able to compose the shot and do a shallow focus, so one person stands out really well in that crowd shot. I always love it when they do that. They did that in the latest Superman movie with Clark Kent in the crowd. Here they do it with Bruce Campbell as Julie goes person to person, and no, you're not, Peyton.
Yeah, I don't care about their love story. Again, they didn't have what they needed to dramatically land the moment. I'm totally fine with finally knowing who Darkman is. What he will do and what drives him in the next adventures, I think it's to get revenge on Durant, but we'll find out for sure next week.
So Justin, Stewart, do you recommend Darkman? Justin.
I can't sit here and tell you that Darkman is a good movie, but I will tell you it's a fun movie, and I think it has the makings, and possibly in different timelines, this could have been a midnight cult classic that they showed at movie houses and people shouted some of these corny line readings back at the theater, because it's got all of those elements that the movies that do end up becoming that type of thing has. I've said the word earnest several times, and I think that's what drives this movie. They're earnestly making this movie. They're trying to make a good movie, but it's got Sam Raimi's handprints all over it, and he knows how to wink and nod at you as a director. So it has a lot of fun stuff in it. If you just sit down and watch this movie and aren't paying attention, it's going to read like a very poorly written movie, and the line readings from these actors are going to be stilted a lot of times. There's so many one-liners that come out of Darkman's mouth where he's talking to himself and speaking directly into the camera, and it's so cornball. But I think that's the charm of it. I think that's what makes this movie somewhat fun. Because at the end of the day, I think back to the series that we weren't in too long ago, Toxic Avenger. And this has a lot of that same DNA as that, right? Like we get this freak who's made to face what he's become and what is he going to do with his life. And apparently here, our guy is strictly driven by revenge motives. He's just out for revenge. So I don't know what they're going to do with him in the next movie because, well, I guess we found out that Drake is coming back, so that character is still out there for revenge.
There you go. There's one more to kill, but I don't know about the third movie.
But this movie took me by surprise. It's one I had heard of. If you had asked me before I sat down and watched it, what's the flavor of this movie, I wouldn't have been able to tell you at all. But sitting down and watching this, I was pleasantly surprised by this little nugget of fun from the late 80s that I never would have given a second thought to had we not decided to review these. So I'm glad we're sitting here talking about these, and I'm going to gladly give this one a nice little recommend for what it is, not because it's a great movie.
Stewart.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying there and agree with it. Here's the thing. I've certainly seen worse superhero movies from this era. Longtime listeners probably remember that I came off somewhat as a hater of the genre back in the early days of the show because I had to suffer through so many awful, underfunded comic book movies that didn't know what they were doing. Roger Corman's Fantastic Four and J.D. Salinger's kid trying to be Captain America and Dolph Lundgren's Punisher and God Help Us Steel. I mean, I wasn't wrong. They were terrible. And in the middle of it, here's this little Darkman movie, as junky and silly and maybe as poorly scripted as all the other ones. What does it have going for it that make it recommendable? Well, that's obvious. It's the director. It's not Liam Neeson. It's not Oscar winner Frances McDormand. They're props in his whiz-bang factory. This is a director that loves visual invention, and this is his laboratory. He gets to have $14 million and play with those elements. And yeah, I totally have a lot of fun watching him and Bill Pope stage these camera shots. It is all about bobbing birds and mobsters that chop off fingers with cigar choppers. Just the visual language. They've really made something that's fun to watch. Again, I do wonder, now that the genre of superheroes has grown, whether going back to it will be as satisfying for people who have now seen this kind of story a lot. And again, Liam Neeson even, I feel like his career has devolved into being the angry old guy that gets revenge on you kidnapped my daughter or whatever it is this week. I'm going to get you.
You drove on my ice road.
Yes. He's always got something he's angry about these days. But back then, we didn't know him. He seemed like a nice guy who was ruined by, prosthetics. It would be interesting to try to remake this, but I think it's a movie of its time. I'm recommending it qualified with the understanding that you're going back to a simpler era, right? This is the superhero genre before it came to be and step into the greatness that it has become. It's a pioneer and a nice big studio debut for Raimi. And yeah, not so dark at all. I would say a little bit of ray of sunshine in what typically when you go to superheroes in the 90s is a lot of schlock.
And when I saw this back in 1990, I'm sure everybody was slapping Batman copycat all over this thing. It's obvious why. I mean, it's got the gothic shadows, the night-drenched city, the Danny Elfman score. There's even a shot of Darkman at night kneeling next to gargoyles.
Yeah, they call it that because it is, Arnie.
But as a 15-year-old watching this at a mall, none of that mattered to me because I wasn't adept back then at spotting influences. I was just glued to the screen watching what felt like a brand new kind of movie, and especially a superhero movie. But afterward, yeah, I went hunting for a Darkman comic because I couldn't believe this character didn't already exist. After Batman and Dick Tracy, I thought for sure Darkman had to have come from the comics. And then Raimi's filmmaking just did blow my teenage brain apart. The canted angles, the whip pans, the zooms, the crazy energy that permeates this film. I had never seen shots move with that kind of manic precision and confidence. It's a movie that felt alive. And yeah, he did it before in Evil Dead 2, but this was his first studio film where he still brought that energy. So now revisiting this as an adult, yeah, I really do see the similarities between Darkman and Batman. But like I said, Darkman was shooting before Batman came out. I think these are two filmmakers tapping into the same pulpy, operatic energy at the same time. Looking at it now, though, I really think Darkman is so much more than Batman Light that slapping that label on it is a disservice to Raimi. Because Darkman is a whole stew of classic monsters and anti-heroes. You get the rampaging emotion of the Hulk, the tragic masks of Lon Chaney, the vengeance-driven brutality of the Punisher, and the romantic anguish of Phantom of the Opera. Every time Liam Neeson goes, Julie, it does feel one breath away from Eric going, Christine! I gotta own up to something, though. People may say this is derivative, because I did state what this is like, and that is an accusation I've leveled at some properties in the past, like Pixar's Incredibles, that I claimed was too obvious a pastiche of Fantastic Four. And yeah, being inspired by what came before and paying homage to the past icons is part of the genre's DNA. Everyone borrows from everyone. The trick is what you do with the pieces, and I think Raimi spins them into his own creation. That Universal wouldn't let him use the Shadow, so he built his own character instead, I think is so much better, because no Shadow movie could ever make me care as much as Darkman does. And I'll go even further. Recently, for fun, I just rewatched Batman 89, And now I've rewatched Darkman. And despite being a lot more expensive, Batman does not hold up as well as Darkman. Keaton stuck in that rubber suit where he can't turn his head. Some obvious blue screening there as well as here. The occasional burst of pure camp in Batman. Listen, I love Batman 89, but I think if you weren't in 89 when it hit, the seams show very clearly. And I think Raimi's twisted sense of humor helps Darkman avoid that without ever becoming a parody. There's just a malicious little grin to the film, the same that he brought to Evil Dead, but toned down just enough. I don't think Westlake is a goof. He's a tragic monster that, despite how Stewart says he just wants the comic book stuff, I root for Westlake. I think his isolated lab scenes are as compelling as the fights. The moment where he has his hand catch on fire and he's crying, they took my hand. I'm with Liam Neeson in that moment. I am not just waiting for the next time he puts on a mask. And then the carnival sequence with the tilted cameras, the rubber fingers, it's a showstopper. I could nitpick, but none of it breaks the movie. Darkman is incredible. I am honestly thrilled. It hits me just as hard now as it did 35 years ago in theaters. It's an easy, emphatic recommend. And thank you to our listeners, because you voted for us to review this. One vote less than for Robert Langdon, but you guys came out and voted that you wanted us to cover Darkman. Thank you for letting me revisit this amazing film that I love.
Yeah, now we could probably stop here, I'm guessing. But we've talked so much about how much we love Sam Raimi. He ain't coming back. In fact, nobody's coming back next week except Larry Drake.
Do not write it off. It is a Sam Raimi production. Sam Raimi had moved into producing at that point. The same studio that put out Xena and Hercules.
Is that a selling point?
Oh, yeah. You're really hooking me, man. Great.
And Sam Raimi was an involved executive producer.
I'm sure he was involved. I'm sure he cashed every check that he could. But it's going to be different going forward, and I am trying to adjust my expectations for what a straight-to-VHS Darkman 2 Return of Durant really means.
It means that if you thought this one looked cheap, you're not going to love the next one, but hey, I'm more in it for the fun and the characters than the visuals. I saw this movie a couple of times. Once when it was brand new on video, and I can't even remember if I knew it was coming out, or sometimes I'd just be in a video store and be like, they made a sequel to that? And take it home and watch it. So I think that might have been what happened with this one, as I really didn't know it was coming.
I knew that it existed, but straight to tape was, might as well have skull and crossbones on it. I'm not touching it.
And in the meantime, if you're looking for more, maybe not great cinema, but fun movies, that's what I'm hoping we have this Friday as we get to our penultimate Anaconda review, reviewing the brand new Jack Black, Paul Rudd, Steve Zahn film. I'm not going to let Steve Zahn's name not be up there. Steve Zahn deserves the recognition of a Paul Rudd.
Yes, it probably could be the best Anaconda movie of the 5 we watched so far. Definitely. Totally.
It would not have to work that hard to do it.
No, I'm thinking it's got you, J-Lo.
So that is available for silver level donors of $10 or more, either through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Patreon, or Podbean, or directly to us using PayPal. You can find the links to do that at nowplayingpodcast.com/donate. And as we start off a new year, I do want to take a moment and thank everyone who took our survey the last few months of the last year. Got over 1,000 responses, and the stuff you guys said are going to directly impact the stuff we cover and how we cover it.
All right, that makes me nervous. What did they pick?
Strangely, less Westerns. I didn't think we covered that many Westerns to do less. I mean, can we do a negative number of Westerns?
All right, I take back everything on Back to the Future 3.
So, a few nice quotes. Sam said we have incredible chemistry. Somebody named Agility said that if they see a new release film, our podcast is the most important opinion to them. Thank you for that. Diaz Juan said he'd like me to go back and put plot summaries in the Friday the 13th episodes. Okay, Jason comes back, he slashes some naked people, and then he dies. I'll just cut and paste that.
Yeah, that should work for all of them.
So thank you all, and we did have an incentive for those of you who took the survey. We were giving away 3 prizes. The first is a year at silver level donation on our Patreon. Congratulations to
C. Bubba 60.
Then we had a second place prize for a year of platinum on our Patreon. So we want to congratulate
J.M. Bovey.
And finally, the big prize, picking a movie for us to review. The most direct impact this survey could have, picking a movie for us to review and joining us on the show is
Brent Biesinger.
I'm actually excited. I really enjoy that process when it's like having a fourth host we've never met sometimes. And we get to know them too, so it's fun. I really look forward to whatever it is. It doesn't matter what the movie is. I just like that format.
Me too. Clark Fisher asked me recently when he was trying to decide his next pick, is there anything we want him to steer towards or steer away? And I said, whatever you want. You know, he picks some out there things like The Fencer we're going to be reviewing soon or Pumping Iron. I said, no pun intended. He lets us flex some muscles that we don't normally get to flex on Now Playing, doing some types of movies we don't usually do. And that's really fun. So I said, whatever he wants to pick, he can keep coming up with them out of left field. So thank you all for taking part in the survey. Thank you all for listening to Now Playing. Thank you for your support. Thank you for voting for Darkman. Thank you for listening to this episode. Justin Stewart, thank you for joining me. And now it's time for us to disappear like a nightmare before the breaking day.
Vengeance has many casualties, the guilty and the innocent. My salvation was buried with those who would rescue me from revenge, and so I continue to face the darkness, alone.
Thank you for listening to this Now Playing Podcast movie review.
Suppose this is goodbye then.
We hope you enjoyed the show.
Nothing lasts forever, Pizza Face.
Help us spread the word about this show by leaving a 5-star review on Stitcher, Podbean, iTunes, or your podcast store of choice.
System ready to receive input.
Want more reviews like this one? In the archives section of NowPlayingPodcast.com, you'll find more than 1,000 in-depth movie reviews from our panel of hosts.
I guarantee they'll make you happy.
On our site, you can hear reviews for every installment in the world's biggest film franchises, including the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Spider-Man, Batman, X-Men, James Bond, Middle-earth, Jurassic Park, Fast and Furious, Star Wars, and Transformers.
We got a surprise for these gentlemen.
And come back to NowPlayingPodcast.com next Tuesday for another all-new movie review podcast.
What is it about the dark? What secret does it hold?
Support from listeners like you keeps Now Playing Podcast on the air.
Consider the big picture.
Consider what we're building here.
You can donate directly by tapping the support button at NowPlayingPodcast.com.
I would have tried to help you. I can help you now.
And you can join our crowdfunding campaign for early access to new episodes, exclusive reviews, and bonus reviews available for a one-time contribution.
Life in the city isn't cheap. Death is.
Need more Now Playing? Subscribe to our In Focus weekly newsletter for exclusive digital download giveaways, celebrity interviews, behind-the-scenes insights, and more. Sign up through the subscribe page on our website and get it delivered to your inbox every Friday.
Now, the pink elephant, if you please.
You can also compare notes with us on Letterboxd. Go to letterboxd.com/nowplaying to see what our hosts are watching when we're not recording podcasts.
Whose little boy are you?
And follow Now Playing on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our YouTube channel.
That would be just fine. That would be just fine. That would be just fine. That would be
just fine.
Now Playing Podcast is produced by Arnie Carvalho.
Look! Look about you! It's all mine! Because I built it! I built it all!
Associate produced by Jason Latham.
So good of you to favor me with your venerated presence.
Now Playing is edited by Heath, Andrew, Santiago, and Arnie.
10 years ago, pain would have been intolerable. This man would have spent the rest of his life screaming. Naturally, we give them every chance of recovery. Remain optimistic, inspire confidence. Personally, I give him a 9 on the Buzzard scale.
Now Playing credits read by Brock.
You hear something?
Yeah. Your mouth.
The opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual hosts and may not reflect the views of Venganza Media Incorporated.
I told you everything!
I know you did.
But let's pretend you didn't.
Venganza Media Incorporated is not affiliated with, and this podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by any entity that created the film analyzed herein.
I'm not going to jail for anyone, Nico.
All movie clips and music included in this podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders. They are included here for the purpose of review, and no infringement is intended.
Want to make a point? You want to make it stick? You use your fists.
Now Playing Podcast is an exclusive trademark of and may not be used without the express written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated.
If you're not going to kill me, I have things to do.
Now Playing is a Venganza Media production, copyright 2026, and no part of this show may be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated. All rights reserved.
Oh God, what have I become? What have I become?
Today we're discussing Darkman, starring Academy Award winner Liam Neeson.
He hasn't won.
He didn't win for Schindler's List?
No.
Seriously? I thought he won for Schindler's List.
No, Sten won. Ben Kingsley won.
Oh, he was nominated for Academy Award. All right. I honestly have lived this whole time thinking he won that year for Schindler.
Who did win? Now that you got me asking, let me think. Don't tell me. Let me think about that year. Who was the one? Was it... I'm trying to think of all the other films that would have been up. Remains of the Day. They didn't go to Anthony Hopkins again. Jeff Bridges' Fearless. The Piano, Harvey Keitel did not win. Shortcuts didn't have anybody. I don't know. I'm stumped.
Tom Hanks.
Philadelphia. Was that 93? It was 93. You're right.
Damn, that would have been Huey Lewis for Shortcuts, but whatever.
Today we're discussing Darkman, starring Academy Award nominee Liam Neeson. All I know about The Shadow, beyond the Baldwin movie, is a very racist joke my father told me when I was too young and had no idea who The Shadow even was. This old radio play superhero guy.
Yeah, no, we had